You see, there's a tower at the edge of town standing black against the sunset like some old rugged rural god that never learned to speak, but somehow the son of a bitch saw everything. That's where I want to begin. Not with politics, not with a chart, not with some sociologist in a blazer telling you what happened to rural America after NAFTA, after opioids, consolidation, school underfunding, church decline, hospital closures, brain drain, and whatever other autopsy language we can use when we're trying to make the pain sound at least somewhat manageable. No, that's not where I want to start. I want to begin with that goddamn water tower. Because that's how places like mine, that's how they get you. They look beautiful, right? When they're trying to hurt you. So does a rattlesnake. You see, the sky turns orange. The trees go black. The football field lights come on, and somebody is frying something that smells kind of good and kind of bad. Somebody's grandmother is working the past hour when her knees finally gave out. Someone's dad is drinking quietly in a recliner somewhere. Someone's kid is sitting in a classroom being taught just enough to survive, but not enough to enter the rooms where the power lives. They're more worried about the Ten Commandments. And all of this, every busted road and unpaid bill and old resentment gets dipped in gold, and it's left there about 7 minutes before dark, right at dusk. That's rural America. Not the postcard, not the campaign ad, not the little cute poverty documentary that y'all want to see that has banjo music groaning in the background like a dying mule. You know the one. But I'm talking about the real friggin' thing. The beautiful, wounded, stubborn, funny, mean, generous, broke, proud, and tired little hometown. But today, I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to my little hometown. But do not for 1 minute misunderstand me. This is not one of those porch swing nostalgia pieces where everybody learns a lesson and the camera pans over a pie cooling in the window. This is gratitude with teeth in it. This is a thank you note written with a rock in one hand. So, welcome back to the Matt Pierce blog. And this one is for those of us who are a little left and a little bit right, because I want to talk to people who, on the left side of the political spectrum, who think that you understand places like mine. And it's not letting the conservatives off the hook because you're just trying to sell us out. Now, some people do. And some of you, I'll admit, on the left and the right, really do get it. You understand structural poverty. You understand labor exploitation. You understand that schools funded by poor communities do not magically produce rich community outcomes. You understand that healthcare, wages, transportation, addiction, housing, and education are not separate problems. They are one big, snarling animal with several heads and a taxpayer funded cage that was never actually locked in the first place. But now some of you only understand rural America as a political category. You see red counties on a heat map and you think that you're looking at a moral diagnosis. You hear a bad opinion from somebody in a feed store hat and you think that you found the whole damn story, right? You see Trump signs, church signs, rusted trucks, Dollar Generals popping up everywhere, and closed storefronts, and you think, well, who the hell are these people? Why do they keep voting against themselves? Well, sometimes they do, damn it. But that one sentence is not the end of the conversation. That's just the beginning of the blood work. because people do not really arrive at this kind of resentment by magic. They're trained into it. They're sold into it. They're cornered into it. They're fed it by men in suits who know exactly what the hell they're doing. And my hometown is one of those places where I learned that the American political machine does not just fail people. It teaches them to defend the failure. Now, to the Dairy Queen. The first place that I want to thank in this long list of things is the Dairy Queen. Not because it was glamorous, because it wasn't, believe me. But my memo worked there. It was fluorescent light, sticky counters, soft serve machinery, grease in the air, teenagers with headsets, tired families, and the smell of fried food clinging to your clothes like a misdemeanor. That's where my memo worked a lot. She stood behind the counter taking up the slack because that's what women like her did. They didn't have the luxury of making a sacrifice poetic. They didn't call it resilient. They didn't post about healing. They didn't brand themselves as survivor and launch a book tour. No, they worked. They showed up. They smiled when their damn feet hurt. They counted change and they took order from people who had no idea what it cost them to keep standing there. The Dairy Queen was a little chapel of sorts, a little chapel of working class endurance. And I mean that seriously. There are churches in this country with stained glass and padded pews that have witnessed far less sacrifice than that Dairy Queen counter. Well, this is where I learned that labor is not an abstraction. It's a body. It's swollen ankles, it's backaches, it's hands that keep moving because the bills have no goddamn mercy. And this is where I want my friends on the left to pay attention. Don't talk about labor like it's a goddamn slogan. Talk about it like it has a grandmother, because mine did. Now let's head over to the fucking school. There was that fucking school. I want to thank that old place too. Though I want to thank it like a man thanks an old truck that got him halfway across the state before the transmission exploded and over there in the Allsup's parking lot. It did what it could do. The school did everything it could do for me. It educated me as far as it was allowed, and that phrase matters. As far as it was allowed. Because people love to talk about failing schools as if buildings wake up in the morning and choose incompetence. But schools are downstream from money, from politics, property values, expectations, social capital, family stability, teacher burnout, local power, and this big, silent, stupid assumption that some kids are being prepared to lead while others are just being prepared to fucking endure. And my school taught me how to read, taught me how to write, taught me how to do things like this. That mattered. It taught me basic math too. That mattered too, actually, because if you grow up poor, you better learn enough arithmetic to know when somebody's robbing you with a fucking smile. It taught me to adapt. In a place like that, adaption is not some corporate retreat. It's not painted on a lanyard. Adaption out in this fucking place is survival. It's figured out how to stretch the gas money. It's watching adults pretend they're not scared. It's learning when to speak, when to shut up, and when to get the hell out of the room because the air's changed. But let's not lie about it. Let's not even pretend. It did not prepare me. That school did not prepare me for power. It did not teach me about how things like social capital works. It didn't teach me how to walk into rooms where people speak in polished code and hide the knife until after dessert. It didn't teach me that America has a private highway running through it and that some people are born with access passes already in the glove compartment. That's not because every teacher failed me. That's not because every administrator or locally elected amateur school board failed me. Some of them were fighting like hell. But it was because the system had failed. And it was not built to deliver every child into equal possibilities. It was built to sort us out while pretending to fucking lift us up. So thank you, school. Thank you very much. You gave me a fucking alphabet. That life, yeah, it handed me the fine print. Now let's move on to the old bastards. Well, so now we come to the old bastards segment. Every hometown has the old bastards. You know the type. They gather around the meat counters, the church foyers, the goddamn barber shops, the school board meetings, the diners, the courthouse steps, the hardware store, like they're guarding the gates of Western civilization from teenagers outside, speeding cars, Democrats, women with opinions, LGBTQ nutbags, and any man who uses too many syllables. You know the type of old bastards I'm talking about. They know everybody's business and almost nothing about the goddamn world. They have opinions so hard that you could pave fucking roads with them if they weren't so damn tight to pave the roads in this fucking town. They think age is wisdom. Volume is truth to these people, and local status is the same thing as actual importance. I represented those men for years, and I resented them too. Some of them deserve the resentment. They could be mean, they could be narrow, they could be suspicious, proud in that brittle way that cracks into cruelty under pressure. They thought they knew what a good man was made of. They thought they knew what made women respectable. They thought they knew which families counted and which fucking ones didn't. And they were wrong often enough to do the damage. But here's where the cheap political story begins to break apart. I can't blame them all for what's haunted me over the years. Some of these men were not born fucking cruel. They were trained by pain and rewarded for hiding it very badly. Farm closures, bad fathers, dead dreams, war shadows, alcohol, church shame, economic humiliation, marriages held together by habit and fear, and a good beating every once in a while, and a goddamn country that told them they were kings while quietly stripping the copper wire out of their kingdom. A wounded man with no language for his wound often becomes a little tyrant. And that's true. Especially in a culture that tells him tenderness is weakness and domination is leadership with boots on. That doesn't excuse these old bastards for what they did. But explanation is not by far an excuse. And if our politics can tell the difference, then our politics is just another theater bumper sticker. It's out there. These old men taught me something, though. They taught me how not to fear the world and not to fear the things that I didn't know. Because I watched them fear, and I watched what fear did to them. I watched men mock what they never studied. I watched them dismiss what made them feel small. I watched them turn unfamiliarity into danger, and then they'd call it common sense. And somewhere in all that noise, old Matt here, I made a private decision. I would rather be confused in the wider world than certain in this little small one. Now, shall we talk about poverty? Why, sure. Let's talk about poverty. And I don't mean the romantic kind of poverty, because that kind of poverty does not really exist. Poverty is not noble. Poverty is not character building exercises designed by God for the benefit of future memoirists. Poverty is a goddamn thief. Poverty is a goddamn sheriff. Poverty is a fucking DA looking to lock your ass up because you're broke. Poverty steals time first. Then it steals health. Then confidence. Then imagination. Then opinions. It makes every decision heavier than it ought to be. It turns car trouble into catastrophe. It turns dental work into a luxury. It turns childhood into an unpaid internship into adult anxiety. And in towns like mine, poverty often lives right beside pride. And that's a dangerous combination. Because when people can't afford stability, pride becomes the last property that they can defend. And they defend it viciously. They defend it through politics, religion, gossip, family fucking names, football teams, truck brands, and opinions that they inherited before they were old enough to question them. That's where the left has got to get practical. People don't need to be morally perfect before they deserve help. They don't need to vote correctly before their children deserve decent schools. They don't need to use the right language before the suffering out here becomes real. The poor person can be wrong. They can be rude. They can be suspicious. They can be politically confused and trapped inside a damn system that profits from keeping these poor bastards desperate. That is not being sentimental. That's arithmetic. And if you can't do arithmetic because the voter annoys you, then you don't need to call yourself serious about justice. Let's talk about the storms. You see, the storms came over the fields like judgment. Black bellied things, low and heavy. The air would change first, the birds would disappear, the trees would stop moving, and everything just went still like a town was holding its breath, waiting for some ancient debt collector to knock on the door. I knew storms before I knew depression. Later, when sadness came for me, I recognized that there was pressure. I recognized the way something dark could move toward you while everybody else acted like the goddamn day was normal. I want to thank those storms, though I say that very fucking carefully. I'm not going to glorify the suffering. There's too much of that cheap nonsense today in the world online already. People love to say pain makes you stronger, right? And sometimes it does. But sometimes it also makes you tired. It makes you strange. It makes you defensive and makes you harder to reach at dinner parties. But pain is thorough. It kicks in the door. It doesn't care about your plans. All it does is come in and drink your coffee. It sits in your favorite chair. It starts asking the same questions that you've been asking yourself for years and years and years. The questions that you've been avoiding. Now, the storms of life and the storms of living in rural America beat me the fuck down. They dragged me into depression and sadness and the kind of internal mud that no slogan could fucking rescue me from. But down here in the low places, I found myself. I found the places that may never have known daylight. Not happiness, not exactly peace, but something a little deeper. Something a little more stubborn, like the pilot light. There was refusal for me to be finished. So thank you, hometown, for the storms. You were a rotten teacher, but you were thorough. Oh, come on. Let's go to the cafe. You know, there were those cafes out there, those Mexican restaurants, the sweet tea in a plastic cup, the red chairs, the painted walls, the ceiling fans moving, tired little angles, you know, families in booth performing normalcy over chips and salsa. You know what I'm talking about. This is where the whole town came to chew, right? I don't mean like what's in my lip. Yeah, you could hear everything in those damn places. The church politics, the divorces, the work injuries, someone's grandson playing fucking Little League, somebody's daughter doing better than expected now that she's pregnant, someone's son's in jail, someone mad about taxes he didn't understand and the public services that he desperately needed. Now, that shit ain't a punchline. That's an American contradiction sitting under fluorescent lights with a basket of tortilla chips. Community is not always gentle. Sometimes community is a surveillance network with casseroles, but it's still a goddamn community. And that's the maddening part. The same town that judges you might feed your whole family when somebody dies. The same man who says something ignorant in the morning might pull your truck out of the ditch by lunch. The same people who suffocate you might be the only ones who show up when the roof comes off. Rural life is a fucking blood knot. Try to untie it with ideology, you'll look like a fool. I mean that genuinely. So what do we do with a fucking place like this? What do we do with it? That's the fucking question. The right, the right wingers, they seem like they have an answer. It says that nothing's wrong except outsiders, immigrants, liberals, LGBTQ people, elites, feminists, atheists, college professors, welfare queens, urban crime, drag queens, China, whatever else they can come up with to throw in the goddamn bonfire this week. It's just a bunch of bullshit. The right sells nostalgia because nostalgia is cheaper than fucking healthcare. It sells identity because identity is cheaper than fucking wages. It sells enemies because enemies are cheaper than infrastructure. And the left, they're no better. The left often has a better policy and worse fucking instincts. It can explain rural suffering, but it can't sit at the table with rural people without looking like it's trying to study some kind of damn wildlife. That shit my folks on the left has got to fucking change. Because let me tell you, people know when they're being condescended to. They may not have the vocabulary for it, but they sure as hell know how to smell. If the left wants to be serious in places like mine, it has to stop treating rural people as either lost causes or a bunch of noble savages, because we're not either one of them. We're fucking people too. Some are generous, some are mean, some are brilliant, some are foolish, some are trapped, some complicit, some trying like hell, some have already given up. Some are waiting for somebody to speak to them like adults instead of data points. That's the fucking work, my friends. Not pandering, not pretending bigotry is economic anxiety in a damn Halloween mask. We're not excusing cruelty here, okay? But instead, what we're doing is building a politics, a political system, a platform that understands humiliation, geography, labor, memory, class, and human pride. A politics, let's say, that's built off of understanding people, truly understanding people. A politics practical enough to fix the bridge and human enough to understand why people keep driving over it when they know that the damn thing's falling apart. So, in closing, thank you, hometown. Thank you for the Dairy Queen where my mamaw stood for hours and showed me love with swollen feet. Thank you to the school that taught me enough to read the world, even if it didn't fully prepare me to enter it. Thank you to you old bastards, you bunch of old bastards, the big fish in the small pond, the men who mistook fear for wisdom and still somehow taught me not to become them. Thank you for the poverty, though I hate what you stole. Thank you for the people outside of the local norms, the whitewashed, whispered about, the judge, the exhausted, the strange, the ones who showed up, that they kind of showed that respectability is often just fear wearing church clothes. Thank you for the cafes, the storms, the sunsets, the fields, the ugly water towers setting like a god in the air, the bad roads, the gossip, the grace, the cruelty, the innocence, and the damage. I can love a place without fucking lying about it. I can thank a place without forgiving everything and everyone. I can defend its people from lazy contempt without pretending that they never caused any harm. That's the balance. That's the work. And maybe that's what America itself has to learn. That gratitude is not motherfucking amnesia. Love is not motherfucking propaganda. And leaving a place does not mean that you escaped it clean. A hometown is not a fucking pair of shoes that you outgrow. It's weather in the blood. It follows you. It speaks to you in your sleep. It shows up in your politics, in your jokes, in your anger, your tenderness, and the way that you look at a sunset like it still might have one more thing to fucking teach you. So, thanks to our little redneck hometowns, you raised enough of us to survive. You starved enough of us out to make us hungry. You broke our hearts early, which was rude as hell, but it was goddamn useful. And somehow, through all of it, you gave me one thing that every trap kid needs. A reason to look beyond the goddamn wire fence of the small fucking town. So, hey, if you made it this far, thank you for staying with me. Long form work is not exactly the internet's natural habitat anymore. And we live in a time when people like the dopamine and they think that the whole human condition is boiled down into a headline, a meme, a comment section knife fight between strangers with cartoon avatars. But sometimes we need fucking room. Some places need walking through. So thank you for walking through mine, not as a tourist, not as a judge, just as a witness. I'm Matt Pierce and I'm a journalist. You can find more photo-heavy essays, political field notes, and strange little dispatches from the American nervous system over at mattpierceblog.com. And if you know a little town like this, or you escaped one, or if you're still trying to, God damn it, this bud's for you.